in one of your papers on code words, you talked about Trump using like globalist versus nationalist as these kind of code
Sure.
words of like saying like reclaiming, I guess, the term he's reclaiming, yay, reclaiming the term nationalist.
Yeah,
But
that's
just
what
a
he
few days
said,
ago,
not
yeah, that's
me.
what he said.
That's what
Yeah,
he said.
yeah, yeah. A few days ago, with Zelensky, he said, "I'm aligned with the good of the world." He like said that, and like he goes, "I'm not aligned with Europe. I'm aligned with the U.S. and with the good of the world. I'm aligned with the good of the world." And I'm kind of wondering, well, is that really the good of the world, or do you mean that the good of the world is synonymous with U.S. domination, widespread
Yeah.
imperialism? Like, what's really going on there? Because it's a pretty, in my mind, liberal idea to say that you know the good of the world is, or like being aligned with the U.S. Like the U.S. should help the world, and the good of the world is
Yeah.
like that's a pretty like liberal idea. Like diplomacy is a pretty, I think, liberal ideal.
Let's talk about the
Yeah.
Zelensky thing. So you sent me this quote, and I'm going to read it because I think this is really interesting, and I think it illustrates another facet of speech that Trump does that is, and I'll try to offer an explanation of I think what's going on here. So here's what he said. He said, "I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America, and for the good of the world, I'm aligned with the world." Okay. So the first thing to note about this is just one piece of background, which is that Trump for a long time in the previous campaign and then also in this campaign was drawing this kind of us and them distinction and narrative between the kind of nationalism that he was pushing and then the globalism of the Democrats or the neoliberals and which would include, it's not just the Democrats, it would include Bush too, and the basically the pre-existing political order before Trump in America. And so the idea was like nationalists are, we do, and this is, I mean, America first. America is, we got to take care of America. And then if there's money left over or time, we'll deal with some other problems in the world. Okay. Whereas the sort of older, kind of view of most, institutionalist view of most the politicians, both right and left, was, well, when we, have a kind of um, America needs to. This is basically post World War II global order, but America needs to play this role of safeguarding democracy in the entire across the world, and there's a value to that. That and all this comes out of the Cold War and stuff, and and that it will include us spending lots of money to provide aid and to provide resources and to basically spread the values of America globally. And I mean, sometimes this is good, sometimes this is bad. Sometimes this gets us into wars that we might not want to be in. But anyway, okay. So Trump, that's the background. So it's like, I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the US. Okay. But then now let's think about explicitly what he said. So he just said, I'm not aligned with anybody. And then he said he's aligned with the US. And that by that he meant that he's with the US against the world, right? It's the US. That's the nationalist globalist stuff. But then he said, I'm aligned with the world. So wait, I'm like, well, what is it? How many? He just contradicted himself at least twice, right? He said, I'm
Yep.
not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the
Yep.
US. I'm aligned with the US. That is kind of against the world. And I'm aligned with the world. Okay. So, like, what are we to make of this? So what Trump is doing there, I think, and there's this really interesting, again, op-ed written by by a philosopher named Michael Lynch, and it's called "Trump: Truth and the Power of Contradiction." I can send you both of this and the Stanley one. Um, so Michael Lynch notes that like when somebody does this, they just overtly contradict themselves. It puts this interpretive onus on the hearer to figure out, well, like which is it? Are you with the world? Are you with the US? Do you have it? Who are you aligned with? What's going on? And so, and different people can then interpret it differently. So suppose you're pro US, like you're America first. Then you're thinking, well, Trump's saying America first, world second. But if you're like one of these people who thinks like, um, well, the rest of the world matters too. So maybe you're thinking, well, maybe he means like America wins and by America winning, the world wins because that's what he's with the world too, right? He said that. So it's like it just now everybody can interpret it differently because you can't be both. So you've got to pick a side. And and then again, Trump sort of is doing this thing where he gets the any sort of swayable voters can pick the side they want. And anybody who's not paying any attention is just like, well, I don't know what's going on with that. And anybody, who is fully behind Trump will just pick whichever one they want to interpret it as and defend that. And it actually this is a similar thing. You could think a similar analysis going on with the Musk Nazi salute. So, he does the Nazi salute. And then what I think is so interesting is what the reaction to that was, and including the Anti-Defamation League, which came out and said like this wasn't a Nazi salute.
Yeah.
And and so immediately like and I think Musk knew this was going to happen, that like it's so it's so egregious a violation in terms of what America has stood for in the last 100 years that nobody would do it. And so everybody, so it's basically like people are going to go run and try to reinterpret it as like, oh, he just meant something. He's just joking or whatever.
He
He's
did
just
it
like,
multiple times. He was like,
yeah.
this was not, yeah. It's
But that's
crazy.
but
Yeah.
it's like a contradiction in the sense that it's so egregious that people are like, well, he must have been joking, and then other people are like, no, that's serious. You can't, like obviously it is a Nazi salute, and but this is and then the discourse just bottoms out in that, right? It's just like, oh well, was it not? Who knows? And so I think that is this, it's a kind of, it's like Code Words 2.0 in the sense that like it's overt, but we're still playing the same kind of game we were playing in the Code Words thing where everybody's like, I don't know, was it not? And I think that's how these guys are getting away with this. It's a kind of trolling, like it's like overtly trolling us and knowing that they'll get away with it because we're just going to get tied up in knots trying to figure, trying debating what it really is. Meanwhile, they, loot the Treasury Department or whatever, like that. So I think like it's like a distraction. And even though it does matter, of course it matters if he is a Nazi, like, or, as he's come out and said a lot of things very supportive of, right on the edge of just saying Hitler was right, not saying that, although interestingly, he has not yet just explicitly said that. So there is a limit still, but he's like doing all the symbols and he's kind of coming out in favor of far right German political parties and so on. And so, but again, it's like they know that this is going to get people rightly concerned. Um, and but there's enough kind of um, smoke that it's not just a it's not just a cut and dry thing like, oh, he's a Nazi, let's move on and not have him in our government. It's like, no, we're just gonna like debate whether he's a Nazi for a while. Meanwhile, he just gets to do whatever he wants in Doge. So I do think like there is a certain sort of like we're being the very social norms that were put in, that were implicitly there to sort of disqualify people like that from having power in a way, um, are now being weaponized against the people they were in place to help, and I think this, so I don't know. I mean, I should say like the next question is probably going to be just like, well, what do we do about this? And I have no idea. Like, I think it is really complicated. And as a kind of my thinking on it just kind of has gotten to the point of like, I can have some understanding of why this is happening, but how to combat it is, I think, a very challenging issue. So,
Yes.